Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. And you'll never miss a story again. I always believed secrets had a way of staying buried, especially the ones you try hardest to forget. That belief shattered on a cold Monday morning, right as I was locking the front door and getting ready for work. A woman I had never seen before stood on my porch, holding the hand of a small boy who looked no older than 7. "Are you Daniel Whitmore?" she asked. I nodded, a bit confused. She bent down to the boy, whispered something in his ear, then looked back at me with red, tired eyes. "This is your son." I laughed at first. Honestly, I did. I thought it was some scam. Or maybe she had the wrong person. I'd never cheated on my wife. I had never even been unfaithful in my heart. Then she said something that changed everything. "Your brother, Kyle. He never told you what happened in Phoenix 8 years ago, did he?" Suddenly my stomach sank. Kyle, my younger brother, my best friend growing up, the one who spiraled into addiction, disappeared for a few years, then came back clean and full of apologies. The same man who stood beside me as my best man at my wedding, the godfather of my daughter, and apparently the one who had slept with my wife while I was away on a business trip 8 years ago. I let them in. My hands were shaking. The boy, Lucas, stood silently. He had my mother's eyes. I knew it instantly, even if every part of me wanted to deny it. The woman introduced herself as Jamie. She wasn't angry, just desperate. "I didn't know how else to find you. Kyle vanished years ago." When Lucas started asking about his father, all I had was a name and a photo. "A photo?" I asked to see it. She pulled out her phone. My world cracked open. It wasn't a photo of Kyle. It was me. Me, grinning, holding a beer at a party I barely remembered attending in Arizona. My face, my shirt, my watch. "I think someone lied to you," I said, my voice almost a whisper. She looked just as stunned. The timeline didn't make sense. I had never slept with anyone else, not even close. But the photo didn't lie. "I don't understand," I muttered. "Where did you get this?" She hesitated, then admitted, "From your wife. She sent it to me years ago." I felt like I'd been kicked in the chest. My wife? I stumbled backward and sat on the edge of the couch, struggling to breathe. Lucas was coloring at the coffee table like none of this chaos existed. He was innocent in all of it. And yet, somehow, I knew his presence was about to blow up everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Jamie left not long after that. She gave me her number and promised a DNA test if I wanted it. I was too stunned to speak. That night, when my wife Lauren came home, I didn't say anything at first. I watched her walk in with groceries, kiss me like nothing had changed. I studied her face for signs of guilt. She had none. Until I mentioned the name Jamie. Her smile cracked, and when I said Lucas, her face turned pale. I I can explain," she said, but no explanation could have prepared me for what came next. She admitted everything. That night 8 years ago, when I was away, she had gone to Phoenix for a girls' weekend. Kyle was there. So was I, at least in the form of that photo. That was the story she told Jamie, that I was the man she met, that I had abandoned her after a one-night stand. In reality, it was Lauren who had posed as someone else. She had pretended to be someone else's girlfriend. Mine. Why? To cover her tracks. Because she was pregnant and Kyle was the father. I stood there frozen. My world, my marriage, felt like it was made of glass, and I had just watched it shatter into a million pieces. Lucas wasn't mine by blood, but he had my face in Jamie's mind because Lauren gave her that picture, knowing full well it was a lie. And now, Jamie had come back. And the lie wasn't just affecting Lauren and me, it was hurting Lucas too. I needed to talk to Kyle, but Kyle was gone. Again. And what I didn't know then was that his return would be far more explosive than his disappearance. The next few days were a blur of sleepless nights and forced conversations. I went through the motions, dropping my daughter off at school, attending meetings at work, but my mind was elsewhere, spinning in the chaos that had taken over my life. Lucas, Kyle, Lauren, the woman I married had lied to another woman, used my identity to protect herself, and now a child, an innocent little boy, was caught in the middle, a child who might be my nephew, or worse, mine? I couldn't stop thinking about that photo Jamie showed me. I remember the party, vaguely, but nothing else. No encounter with her, no missing memories. Could Lauren have stolen that photo from my social media? Used it to complete the lie? The pieces fit too neatly, too cruelly. I finally confronted Lauren again, this time in the quiet of our bedroom after our daughter had gone to sleep. "You need to tell me everything," I said. My voice was flat, but I could feel my heart pounding. She sat on the edge of the bed, her face streaked with tears before I even finished my sentence. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she said, staring at the floor. "I didn't even know I was pregnant until months later, and by then, Kyle was already gone. You told Jamie I was the father." I panicked, she cried. She was calling, texting. She wanted answers. I thought it would be easier if I just said it was someone she couldn't trace. And I had that old photo of you. I told her your name was Daniel, but said we'd never talked again. And you didn't think that would eventually blow up? She didn't answer. The betrayal was layered. It wasn't just that she had a moment of weakness. It was that she had carefully constructed a lie using me as the scapegoat, all to hide a secret from a woman who had every right to know the truth. I asked her if she was sure Kyle was the father. She nodded slowly. "I'm not proud of it, but yes." That's when I knew I had to find him. I drove to our parents' old cabin upstate. Kyle used to disappear there when things got rough. Maybe it was wishful thinking, but I needed a lead, any lead. The cabin was abandoned, the door unlocked, a few beer bottles scattered across the porch. I walked inside, half hoping, half dreading what I'd find. I called his name. Silence. Then, just as I was about to leave, I noticed a familiar hoodie hanging on the coat rack by the door. His hoodie. Faded blue with the torn sleeve. He'd been here. I left a note on the kitchen table. "Kyle, I need to talk to you. It's important. It's about Lucas." I left my number and drove home, unsure if he would call. But he did. 2 days later. His voice was rough, tired. "What do you want, Dan?" "I need the truth." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, then, "You found out, huh?" "Yes, everything." "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said, almost like he was choking on the words. "Lauren and it was stupid. One night, I thought she hated me afterward. And the kid? I didn't even know there was a kid." My fists clenched around the steering wheel. "You let her lie to another woman. Pretend I was the father of your child. Do you even understand what kind of damage that causes? I didn't even know Jamie existed." I believed him. That was the worst part. I believed him. Because Kyle, for all his flaws, had never been good at hiding guilt. If he'd known, he would have said something. Or maybe he would have run sooner. I told him everything about Jamie, about Lucas, about Lauren's lie. "I want to do the right thing," he said. I didn't know whether to be relieved or furious. Jamie and I met again, this time without Lucas. She looked tired, more so than the last time. When I told her about Kyle, about the real identity of Lucas's father, her expression froze. "I knew something was off," she whispered. "But I never thought—" "I'm sorry," I said. "I never knew she lied to you. I never knew she used me to cover it." Jamie didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, "He deserves to know the truth, Lucas, even if it hurts him." We agreed to tell him together, but not yet. We'd wait for the DNA test, even if it was just to confirm what we all knew in our bones. What I didn't expect, though, was how quickly everything else would unravel once that decision was made. Lauren found out about the test. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She packed a bag. "I knew it was coming," she said. "I just hoped maybe if I pretended long enough, it would go away." "Did you ever love me?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. Just stood there with her hand on the suitcase. Then, She looked at me with a mixture of sadness and exhaustion. I did, but not enough to stop lying. And with that, she walked out the door. The DNA test came back a week later. Kyle was the father. Jamie cried when she read the results. I stayed silent, my emotions a tangled mess. I couldn't begin to unravel. Lucas didn't know yet. We were waiting for Kyle to step forward. He was on his way, though. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at an untouched cup of coffee, thinking about how fast life can shift. One knock at the door had flipped my world upside down. I wasn't Lucas's father, but I had become something else entirely. Someone who had to hold together the broken pieces of two families torn apart by one lie. What none of us saw coming was what Kyle would bring with him when he arrived. Because Kyle wasn't alone. He had someone else with him. Someone from the past who would drag even more truth to the surface and force me to confront a betrayal I didn't even know was possible. The knock on the door came just past noon. I had been expecting Kyle. He said he'd be by around lunchtime, but I wasn't prepared for who stood beside him. A woman. Tall, early 30s, sharp eyes, and wearing a tailored coat that told me she wasn't just some acquaintance. Kyle looked uneasy. Dan, he said, scratching the back of his neck. This is Vanessa. I extended a hand, trying to mask my confusion. Nice to meet you. She was with me when Lauren and I, he trailed off. Vanessa didn't flinch. I was Kyle's girlfriend when he slept with your wife. My stomach twisted. Another thread unraveled. Kyle cleared his throat. Vanessa and I broke up months after that. But when she found out what happened recently, about Lucas, about Lauren, she contacted me. Said she had something I needed to hear, and something you needed to know too. I led them into the living room. Vanessa sat with her hands clasped tightly like she'd rehearsed whatever she was about to say. I'm not here for revenge, she started. And I don't blame you for anything. But Lauren didn't just lie to Jamie, or you, or Kyle. She lied to me too. I raised an eyebrow. She contacted me last year. Said she wanted to come clean. Said she was in over her head. At the time, I didn't know what she meant. We met at a coffee shop. She looked broken. She told me she had lied about who fathered her child. I thought she meant Kyle, so I told her I already knew. I had suspected, but then Vanessa's voice cracked slightly. She told me she lied to another woman too, that she had pretended someone else was the father, just to escape judgment. I leaned forward. She admitted this to you a year ago? Vanessa nodded. She said the guilt was killing her, but she was terrified that if she told the truth, she'd lose everything. Her family, her marriage, her daughter. I was speechless. Kyle looked away, his jaw clenched. She said you were a good man, Vanessa added quietly, that you'd never forgive her, but that you didn't deserve the truth either because it would destroy you. That stung. Not just the words, but the cold calculation behind them. I sat back, the room spinning. She knew. For a year, and still let the lie fester. What made you come here now? I asked. Vanessa hesitated. Because Jamie deserves better. Lucas deserves better. And I wanted to see if you were the kind of man Lauren said you were. Kyle stayed quiet most of the visit. When Jamie brought Lucas over later that day, Kyle asked for a moment alone with them. I watched through the kitchen window, my heart in my throat, as Kyle sat cross-legged on the floor beside Lucas. He said something I couldn't hear, then pulled a small toy truck from his pocket and handed it to him. Lucas smiled shyly. Jamie wiped her eyes. Kyle's hands trembled when he looked up at her. I stepped back from the window, giving them privacy. It wasn't my moment to witness. Later that evening, I finally sat down with my daughter. She was old enough to know something had changed. Where's Mom? She asked. I didn't lie to her. I didn't tell her everything, but I told her Mom had made mistakes. Big ones. That sometimes grown-ups lose their way, and that doesn't make them bad. But it does mean they have to work hard to make things right. She nodded slowly. She was quiet for a while. Then she asked, Are we still a family? That broke me. I hugged her tight. Yes, sweetheart. Families don't disappear. Sometimes they just rearrange. Days turned into weeks. Lauren called. Once. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was long, apologetic, rambling. She said she'd started therapy, said she was staying with her sister, said she'd like to talk when I was ready. I wasn't ready, not yet. Kyle surprisingly stepped up. He visited Lucas regularly, started helping Jamie with errands. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was trying to be responsible, maybe for the first time in his life. Jamie and I kept talking, not romantically, but as two people who had been hurt by the same storm and who now shared a quiet understanding. Funny, she said one day while we sat in the park, watching Lucas run. You were never the father of my child, but you're the only one who actually acted like one when it mattered. I didn't know how to respond, so I just smiled. One Sunday morning, Kyle joined us at the park. He brought sandwiches and juice boxes, sat under a tree with Lucas, and helped him build a sandcastle. Jamie watched him closely. She didn't trust easily. None of us did anymore. But something about that moment felt healing. Not fixed, not perfect, but healing. Later, while walking back to our cars, Jamie asked if I'd ever forgive Lauren. I thought about that. I don't know, I admitted, but I think I've forgiven myself for believing her for so long. She nodded. Some people lie because they're afraid, she said. But the real damage isn't the lie. It's the silence that follows. I looked at her. And you? I asked. You okay? She gave a small smile. I will be. Epilogue. 1 year later. Lucas turned 5. Kyle threw a small party in his backyard. Just close family. Jamie invited me. I came, brought a gift, watched as Kyle helped his son blow out candles. Lauren didn't attend. She called Lucas that night, though. Jamie allowed it. She said every child deserves a chance to know where they came from, even if the path is messy. As for me, I'm still picking up the pieces, but I'm stronger now, wiser. Sometimes life hits you with a betrayal so deep, you think you'll never come up for air. But if you keep breathing, keep walking, keep showing up, eventually, the truth stops feeling like a weapon and starts feeling like freedom.